And the other thing is, which is a very simple practice, but I've seen work for the best, even myself at my worst. The 30-second, 3 times a day rule. And the 30 seconds on a watch, it can never be measured that you had been missing for those 30 seconds, which is so important for you to know when you want to feel safe. And people can't blame you for having spent time away to meditate. But just 30 seconds, 3 times a day, where you take 5 deep breaths. It would normally be around 5 deep breaths, 30 seconds. And 3 times a day doing this will change your life. And it will always send you to a better place.
Christel Rosenkilde Christensen, welcome to Fear Unzipped. It is such an honor to have you here. I first heard about you from Tony Riley, who is a beautiful past life regressionist. And she was one of the first guests on my show, and I love her dearly. She told me about you. And then our mutual good friend, Marta the Medium, who I love dearly, also spoke about you. And I thought, it's time. I've got to get Christel on here because especially where we are in the world right now, you're going to be able to explain the energetics of what's happening. And we need to hear that. Okay. Let me introduce you a bit here to the listeners and viewers. You are a strategic advisor and a seer, beautiful combination, and the pioneer of energistic leadership, often called the New World Oracle. You help people move through fear, which, of course, that's what we're talking about here, uncertainty, pivotal life moments with greater clarity and trust. And this is what I really love. You're known for your ability to, I call it a superpower, to perceive the deeper dynamics unfolding beneath complex situations and illuminate what people can't see. So oftentimes I believe we think it's one thing. Actually, it's something completely different, and you're able to see that and feel that. You work with clients in 30 different countries, blending strong business and analytical background with highly intuitive and psychic way of understanding human behavior and systems. And I've said this so many times on the podcast that if you can bring in Western and ancient wisdom together, I think it's a full meal deal. You've got it going because we are human. And I do think we need that Western balance as well. You're the author of the book, The Treasure, How to Change the World on Energistic Leadership and Agent for Visionary Change. We need that. Today, you lead an international practice and are the creator and host of the US-based TV and podcast show, The Magic of Elite Consciousness. I really want to get into what is elite consciousness. Christel, welcome. And please, if you could just tell our viewers and listeners what your life was like before this, because it's my understanding that you went through some pretty big traumas before you found this space that you're in today.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I've been excited to combine our energies and see where the conversation leads us and how we blend with your audience, who I'm sure is amazing, and conscious visionaries doing great work out there. So thank you so much for having me.
Love having you.
Yes, my path has probably been a bit different to most people working in my field. I was brought up in a business family. My dad was a CEO. My mom worked in the same company. So throughout my childhood, I heard about optimization and doing the best for the company. And my family and my father has always been very, very ethical. Everything was taken from an ethical standpoint for the good of the greater good, not for the individual. So that's how the conversations were around the kitchen table with me growing up. I was also at a very young age an elite athlete in karate and swimming. And I also, in my school days, I had my own band. I was singing, I was performing in big musicals. And at the age of 18, I had a sports injury that changed the trajectory of my life, basically, because I had to look into what then, if it was not going to be a sports. And for some reason, because that was my passion, all my passions literally just shut down from one day to the other. I didn't sing any longer. I didn't paint any longer. It was literally from one day to the next. I had to look into another direction, which made me focus. So I went into business school, and very quickly found out that observing strategies, business cases of performance, it was so easy for me to log in to the solution. And at that time, obviously, I was not aware of my intuition, of how I used it. It was just a part of me since I was born. Basically, I've seen and sensed energy patterns. And still at that time, it was just about getting good grades. I was amazed to get good grades getting into business school because it was such a different field. So going into business school, taking various, both a double bachelor within international business and negotiation, went into my master's in international management and leadership. Everything it was very easy for me, and I loved it. I was thriving in looking into the solutions. I love that optimization part. Also in finance, the business school I went to, we had to calculate the formulas before using the formulas. It was so exciting. I felt it was very exciting to get behind the veil to what the solution may be. Then due to my thesis, I went into, I was very interested in China. At that time, it was 2003, I guess. There was a lot of business trends, at least in Europe. I'm from Denmark, born in Denmark. And there was a trend in getting to know China and doing business with China. So I moved to China to do my thesis, and I did some extra electives on an MBA school there. And I offered my services or a consulting project for free to an American company, actually. That was a worldwide based company. And the CEO kept asking me questions about challenges that he had in different departments in the business, either global or local. And I never thought of it that was unusual. So I just gave him the solutions every time he asked. And during that time, somebody else saw me for being able to see what was actually not possible for somebody with no experience, no business background, suddenly being thrown to the lions and come up with solutions to challenges that experienced people were struggling with finding in business. And I need to clarify, I was very humble. I, of course, did not know how to get from the challenge to the solution. I just had insights as to some steps that they had overseen. So these were experts, amazing business people, very passionate, very skilled business people. So I'm not saying that I was better. I just saw things they didn't to combine with their experience. And that started my path in realizing that my my oracular vision was very, very different to what traditional business or performance people saw. So they offered me a global leadership position, and I then traveled around the world with them for a couple of years. And my brother then called me and said that they had detected a heart failure with his heart, and they didn't know how bad it was at that time. But from imagine I was very young, and I was 26 at that time. I had escalated a beautiful career at that time already, and felt that I was living the high of my life and traveling the world and seeing so much that I had not dreamed of at that age. But at that phone call, everything changed. I knew I had to go back home. And my company offered me to just work from Denmark because I was a global position. And I said, no, I can't, because it's not about going home. It's about going home and being present. And so I quit my job without knowing what was next. And in the meantime, my brother found out that it was a minor. So luckily my brother is still alive and thriving today, but it was the tipping point that made me quit my job. And the day before leaving, one of the Chinese colleagues came up to me and he said, promise me you don't continue this path. Everybody in this company have seen you, see us. You have to go out there and change the world, because you have changed our lives and you are different than us. You need to take your energy serious. And that was such a blessing from someone that I've not had a lot of conversations with, but again, being seen from somebody outside of me who saw that was my passion, to change things for the better and uplift and heighten the opportunity for everyone around me. That has been my passion even as a child, to when I was playing with other people, to uplift them and play other people good, play other people better, but also make them realize that they matter. And so I was seen from the outside. So when I then got home, I meditated for 3 months. And I've meditated since I was 11. My grandmother got cancer. And while she had treatment, she also joined a course back then. I think it helped Think Yourself Well. Back then, this is many years ago, you did not say meditation. So she bought these cassette tapes that I had in my age. Probably, I don't know, some of your listeners might not know what that is. But so it was a cassette tape with a guided meditation for young children, in how to understand their capacity and feel loved and feel empowered and feel connected to something greater than just ourselves. So I had applied meditation since 11. So when I was then back home, I sat for 3 months in a row meditating and praying and asking, why did I have the educations that I had? Why did I have the career that I had, now that I wanted to be present and not gone all the time? And how could I combine it with what I always saw and who I was? And what I at that time was very aware of was also not only a healing capacity, but truly an empowering capacity. And then during the 3 months, I had auto writing coming out of my hands onto a piece of paper, coming out with this concept I pioneered with Energistic Leadership, so that I could communicate and translate my intuitive vision, my oracular vision, translate that into performance language, make boards, CEOs, top performers in sports and politics and performance, make them understand the responsibility that their capacity is to create a ripple effect with the energy that starts with how they think. And that became the journey of now having worked with people from 30 different countries and in all walks of life, and having helped people understand the energy that we carry, the energy that we're capable tuning into to empower ourselves, and that immense ripple effect it has when we let it work through us, through what we're good at, what we're passionate about. Let that ripple into the world. Because in that way, we're not only good at something, we apply it together with that of which is greater than ourselves. And that ripple effect and that energy, living our lives like that, that teaches us to create a higher awareness and lead consciousness in how we think, choose, and act. So the ripple effect that we exude into the world becomes not only about creating results, but also leaving the world better for future generations.
Christel, it's beautiful. It's how I feel as well. I always talk about, if you can do anything, just anything for the world, just heighten your frequency, heighten your energy, try to think positively as much as you can, put love out, just put love out into the world. It's hard to do all the time, I understand, but it's so important. There are so many things that you said in there, and one of them is you had a trajectory for your life. You knew exactly what you were going to do when you were younger. You were an athlete, and that's what you were going to do in life. All of a sudden, an injury comes in, and your whole worldview, your foundation is pulled out from underneath you. I think that happens to a lot of us. And what was it in you that gave you the confidence that, okay, I'm going to move on to this? And because most of us would go, oh no, I have nothing here now, because that is my identity.
Yeah. I think I love that question, because not only is that relevant, I'll get back to it right away, but we're also at a crossroads in history where we all have to change, and how we see ourselves compared to how can we change how we see ourselves, what we do, and how we co-create a different and a better world with the new energies, the new tools, the new way that the world needs us to move into. So I think it's an exciting question. But for me, I've never questioned a next step. I've had setbacks. I've lived like everybody else. I had grief. I have setbacks. Like all human beings, I've had several things that I could get into. But the thing is for me is that I've been down in a certain amount of time. And then either somebody suggests something to me. Back then, it was my mom who had found an education that I could combine travel with business. So because it was not traditional, it caught my eye, and I felt there was freedom in being able to do it internationally. So all my 2 bachelors and my master's, it was all international, every part of it, so that I could travel with it. But to me, it's about catching the science, the light. When somebody says something, or if I read something, or if I had an idea, I've never been afraid of following that spark. You can call it the God spark. I call that to myself, but people that are not religious can call it something else. But the spark of life, it's when there's this new idea that suddenly come out of the blue, whether it's from within or from somebody else in the outside world. The more we train ourselves or open up for those cues, we'll realize that the universe, the world is throwing us cues as to where to go every single second in our day. When we are experiencing trauma, we will be exposed to a fear that is embodied from within. It can be something from this lifetime, or it could even be from past lives, whatever people believe in. I leave it with the individual who listens. But then we can be caught in a spiral that for that time being that we are stuck in that spiral, no matter if it's me who is trained and work with what I do, or somebody else. When we experience a trauma, we also have to acknowledge that cues and signs are very hard to react on. So anybody who are right now in a trauma spiral, please don't think I'm saying that it's just about following the cue and you will get better and you'll find your path. I know it takes time and I know it takes work. I have CEOs who have traumas just even in their business, and athletes who are living out of trauma, and then I have to help them soothe it and be with them for the time it takes, or the organization has experienced something traumatic. You can't just make that quantum leap instantly. So I really want to say that with enormous respect and compassion for anybody going through something really hard right now. But when I'm in it, I acknowledge where I'm in, what state I'm in. So I'm also allowing myself to be, whether it is grief or whatever I had experienced, like all of the people. But in the second I feel that light in a suggestion, in the second I get an idea, I know I need to act on it. And my personality has always been act, because I've always trusted everything. I've trusted nature. I've trusted the universe. I've trusted God. I've trusted that I would attract the right people. I've trusted that even a stranger saying something to me has a truth in it. And they might even, the way they look at you, they might not even recognize or acknowledge what they're saying in that moment. It comes through them. But because they're a stranger and it then comes out of their mouth, I suddenly trust it more. There's so many different ways. I know these are all very small and detailed suggestions as to how do I get the confidence to move on. But I think we all have to have the courage to act on the more or less almost invisible cues. But if there's a light with it, if there's a passion, if it makes you just think for a second and feel excited, then that's a sign. But I also know I've had my own traumas. I have lived my own things in life where I had moments where the only thing I could was to heal and soothe and take myself through certain periods in my life where, of course, that was not possible. But I hope that makes a little bit of sense as to how I live it.
It makes so much sense. The key there is trust. And it's hard for a lot of us to trust. Even with our intuition, when it comes in, you think you're making it up. Or a loved one is speaking to you and it's out of the blue and you're making it up. And I think trust, and for me, trust has been a really important word. And somewhere along the line, about a decade ago, trust came in full speed. And then I started to really watching the signs but I do think it's hard for us to trust. And I also think when we're in trauma, your amygdala is on high alert and you're just in fear and you can't think clearly. Suzanne Giesemann, who was on this podcast, she suggested when those thoughts come in, when you're in so much fear and you keep ruminating over it, to go, isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. Which makes you step back and look at it almost from a third person. It eases the angst, the energy of it all. And we do need tools. So if you can suggest other tools that when we're in the height of that, I mean, if you lost a loved one, that's a trauma that it takes time, and you take your own time. There is no magic time to get over that. But I would be in anxiety all the time, Christel, and I would wait for the other shoe to drop. And I was picking up the energies of other people, which I had no idea I was doing. What are some things that we can do to help us ease that around us and bring us back to homeostasis a little bit?
Yeah. It is of course very dependent on how badly we're injured or how bad we are traumatized, or the PTSD that we are experiencing when we come out of either a bad relationship or from having worked with people for a long time that didn't want things well for us. Everything depends. But two things that always worked for me was knowing exactly what friend that I could always depend on, being objective, not the people who would say, oh, I feel so bad for you, or literally that friend that has spirituality within them and that it will tell you the truth if they feel that you are spinning or whether what you're saying has a truth to it. So finding your people or finding that one person, I believe is a lifesaver for anybody. I have some of my clients, they are at the top of the food chain, I would say, in business or something. They don't have people to turn to. And that's where I sometimes step in and become their sounding board. But most people, we're fortunate enough to have friends that we can take into our vulnerable state. We have to be honest. We have to let somebody, at least one person, see what is behind our smile. We have to have that one friend at least. So if anybody out there are afraid of showing your vulnerability to even just one, know that one person will be honored that you share it. And the other thing is, which is a very simple practice, but I've seen work for the best, even myself at my worst, the 30-second, 3 times a day rule. And the 30 seconds on a watch can never be measured that you had been missing for those 30 seconds, which is so important for you to know when you want to feel safe and people can't blame you for having spent time away to meditate. But just 30 seconds, 3 times a day, where you take 5 deep breaths. It would normally be around 5 deep breaths, 30 seconds. And 3 times a day doing this will change your life. And it will always send you to a better place. And why is it not just 1 time a day, or why is it not 5 times a day? Literally, that when you do it once, you feel the effect, but then you're back into the game. When you do it twice, you're reminded of it. But when you do it a 3rd time, that's where the magic works. Even in fairy tales, it's always 3 wishes or 3 attempts. It's literally, that's where the magic happens. And if you remember that, if you then put a link to a fairy tale also, I like putting links to things, metaphor to things, then know that's when the magic happens. Because then you're wired. But it's not too many times that it's hard to think about, because usually we would eat at least 3 times a day. There's 3 main meals, and you can then have your 3 main breaths or 3 main breathing points where you reconnect to your life energy. And it may sound very simple, but I encourage anybody who's either suffering from anxiety or just under pressure or stressed, or even stressed for something good, like a good period where a lot of good things are happening. 3 times a day connecting to your life source makes a world of a difference. To those of you who are used to meditating or praying, what I do is that in that 30 seconds, I start by asking or praying, may I please be connected to the highest source, to the divine source, to the universal source, breathing for me. I love what you said to begin with. Breathe for my strength, for the strength for those around me and the world. Because then we connect it with whatever we believe in. I have clients from the Middle East. I have people that are Buddhist. I have people from the Bible Belt in the US. I have people from LA that very New Age, and people in Scandinavia. Please do not ever mention love or faith, because they don't want that connected with what they do. So it's not about me being a missionary of a faith, but I would just love to remind anybody for whom faith is important, that when you connect your thought patterns and your decision makings and even your breathing, connect that with source, connect that with your faith, then you are empowered in ways that I don't think any modern science can give us answers to, how strong we become and the ripple effect it has into our lives.
That is a beautiful practice. I actually do that. And I don't look at my watch. I don't do 30 seconds, but I do make sure, especially when I'm feeling a bit of overwhelm, I go and it's the breathing. The breathing just helps me. What I do is I breathe in for 4, I hold for 4, I breathe out for 4, and then I hold for 4. And it just shifts, it shifts you out of fight, flight, freeze, and into that space of peace. And when I say, if the word faith or God or, are triggers, I just say, don't you want to feel peace? I just want to feel peace and groundedness. That's if I was telling a friend the other day, if I had peace and groundedness in my life every day and joy, I have it all. That means everything is working for me, probably financially, in friendships, in relationships, in work. So peace, we need peace, which is a nice little transition into leadership. I remember the Prime Minister of New Zealand, the old Prime Minister of New Zealand, a female, she now travels the world teaching empathetic leadership. And she certainly understood it from a perspective of leading a country. And right now, because the collective, we're pretty riled up. We're in a lot of fear, and we're being pushed into a lot of fear.
Yes.
It's the control source that has always been. To control people, you put them in fear. Well, we're getting smarter, and the energies are shifting us. So can you give some advice to those of us who are picking up on the energies of the collective, because so many of us are coming online now with our intuitive abilities, our psychic abilities, our telepathic, and we're picking up on energies. What can we do when we look at something or something pops up on the news? I don't watch the news, but if you hear one thing that triggers you, what can we do to self-soothe and to put out a ripple effect into the world that's going to be more positive?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's important to remember all the good things that happen every single day. People, babies are being born every single day. We meet people every single day who smile at us. In some capacity, somewhere, most people will experience somebody smiling at them at the street. At least if we smile at them, most people will smile back. And then I have different kind of media outlets that I go to who actually collects and transmit positive news, because there is so much. I traveled for 1.5 years with my Treasure Change the World tour, where for 1.5 years traveled following my intuition and the energy for who to talk to. And then I gave them a couple of minutes of my time to let them know how much they mattered. And I left home to give. And for 1.5 years traveling with my suitcase and nothing else, I did not meet a threatening person. I did not have a threatening conversation. 1.5 years I traveled, and I stayed with private individuals I met along the way on their sofas in their art galleries. I stayed at hotels. I walked the streets in New York you probably wouldn't want to walk, but I followed my intuition, where to help, where to uplift, where to empower. I ended up in the bush in Australia with Aboriginal leaders. 1.5 years, and I just met good people. That's one thing. The other thing is that we are in a crossroads in history where we need triggers to rise. So we have a massive population on this planet who are conscious visionaries, who are good at heart, who wish their local community well, who wish the world well. And many of us have had businesses that in some way empower other people, or podcasts or television shows with the best intention. But imagine if everybody got so triggered by what happens in the world right now that they started speaking up for change, started changing the course of their lives and their businesses for a force of good. And Nobody rises when they're too comfortable. Nobody rises truly if they think the system is going to take care of them, or that a leader or world leaders are going to take care of them. We have, since World War II, I believe that we have become too complacent as a Western world, at least. We've been spoiled big time, spoiled by living comfortable lives compared to many other places on our planet. And complacency and not speaking up, I'm not going to put blame on us, but I'm going to say that time is now. We need a new trajectory for our world. We've seen what climate change does to our planet. We've seen what war does to our young. We've seen the consequences with how we lead politics and businesses based on only greed. I know there are many businesses out there that do good, but we see the consequences. 20 years ago, I started my business because I was so frustrated seeing in my own company, client companies, I saw how we used the wrong measurements for success. I saw how we squeezed margins as big companies, squeezed little suppliers to get the best possible out of the least possible paid. So everybody is squeezing everybody instead of truly knowing that working together is always going to make a better output for everybody. So if we feel that our entire stakeholder chain for our company, organization, our countries, if we really understand that uplifting everybody along the way will create more safety for everybody, more better life quality for everybody, and we can still have those who want to work more, can earn more, and those who prefer to live a different and be at service as a different way. It's okay to have some differences. But if we do not understand as a community and as a world that the lower quartile of our world, how that lower quartile is the living standard for that percentage, is actually determining how safe we all are in the world at large, and that when there is suffering in our world, it will be felt by all of us. Mm-hmm. And we know this, you and I, and you and I, we want to communicate all of this to as many people as possible. But now, mainstream people around the planet are being under pressure by what we see politically, geopolitically, environmentally. It's in our face what people with our values have been quiet about too long. We've maybe used our own channels, but are we truly rising, all of us? Are we truly voicing, all of us, what we believe in? Will we stand up in our school and say something against the school system, how it is today? Are we not speaking up because we're afraid to create an uncomfortable environment for when we're there? Are we afraid to create conflict around us because of what we believe in? And I've been extremely diplomatic. I've been known for how I work with groups and people, the way that I'm diplomatic about things. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable working with me. But I've also been that in voicing my message on my social media, on my television shows. And I know I can't be that any longer. I have to get out of my comfort zone on wanting to make everybody comfortable. Because if I want to make everybody comfortable and at least create a good ambience for while I'm with people, then I'm being too conscious about how I say things compared to what output I truly believe that we need to have. That has been a learning curve for me, and some of my traumas and challenges in relationships have taught me to put boundaries, taught me to speak up, taught me to be tougher. But that's another story for another conversation.
We all have that story, Christel. So it's interesting you say the triggers are the way that we're changing. Energetically, what are you seeing, because you're deeply sensitive to this? Energetically, how is the world shifting right now? It's different than it's ever been. I feel it every single day that I wake up. How do you feel what's going on, and what do you see kind of a trajectory for this new energy?
I, of course, know there's a lot of chaos right now. And of course, we're allowed to be concerned because change is never comfortable. And what we see at the moment is that there is a shift in power dynamics. Mm-hmm. And we don't know where it's going to end, all of it. But we see that due to the geopolitical situation, I just see 2 years ago, I saw how there was a shift in power structures across the world. And I literally saw new countries rising to take co-responsibility, because I believe it's what we are seeing right now is co-creation. It looks like chaos, and we see some people acting out at the moment, being very dictatorial about ways. I'll try not to be political too much about it, but we see that and we get frightened. But we also see a lot of new alliances that is broken and that needs to be broken and needs to be rebuilt afterwards with more consciousness about how did we structure the world. And not only with Second World War, we can even look at it from, even look at women, look at equality. And I know, again, not to be too political, but from an outside observer, it had looked a little bit like that the US as a general has been taken back in terms of equality for women, LGBTQ, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. We've seen that across the world, but because it's being repressed, it's going to be like a bow. It's going to come back big time. We just need to see we're not doing enough. If we look at the numbers for how many women that are abused across the world, that number politically, there's not enough incentive for politicians yet to do something structural for that to change. We had Me Too campaign that has done a lot, but that's still for the abuse that happens outside the homes. Me Too was not about what happens throughout the world for women in the home when we're talking about abuse. There's so many levels as to what we can say, what we can speak up about for women, for people with different faith, with different we need equality in all measures. And we will not speak up and do something about it if we are not repressed to a certain extent. So the power structure I see shifting is going, not only in the Western world, going to improve something for us, but with different countries now getting a bigger role in power, in business and in politics and in the UN. They are now forced to look inside their countries, because when they have a more empowered role in the world, then the world starts expecting new things from them. So not only in the West are we starting to say we want better, we want more, we are not allowing this. The same thing is happening all around the world with these changes, that 10 years, 50 years from now, we live in a very different world. And we actually now, from before COVID, live in a very different world already.
Yeah, we do.
And we don't realize that. But what a shift. Many people. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
We definitely do. No. So this podcast is I wanted a safe space where people don't feel fear. There's so much information out there to make us fearful that I want people to feel held and seen and supported and loved. And I really do feel this. And so it's a safe, I call this a safe space. So for those of us that might not be out there marching, on the lines or that we're it's important that we as individuals feel safe within ourselves. And things like your breathing technique is just so important, and ways for us to nurture ourselves so we feel less alone, just more safe within our own bodies. Are there other things that you can suggest, and how to listen to our intuition? Because so many of us don't really listen to it. We don't listen.
No. I think what comes to mind when you ask is a bit different as to what I would normally say, but it also stems from a conversation we had just before starting filming. We didn't speak much, but what we don't recognize is the peace that we can create within our home can create a completely different life for ourselves if we start looking at our home as the world. If we can start there by creating a peaceful environment. Look, is it decorated the way that you need? Do you have little cues that remind you of breathing or being at peace? You see in the back of my wall, I have 2 angel wings. I'm living with my daughter who's 8, so it's her wings over mine. So I always remember to spread out my wings so that she can be reminded of spreading out her wings. We have little, I wish I could show you around, but all around the house, we would have a crystal ball, or we would have, like the kids, they have teddy bears or something else. But what make us mindful of our home is our peace, and it's our foundation. It's our base for any change we wish to see in the world. Because I believe that too many people, we come back home with obsessing about the day, or obsessing about our difficulties or challenges, we have to clean, we have to declutter. There's many things in our mind that we have to. But if we shift perspective as to, in the second I step into my home, that is my signal, I'm now at peace. And if I have a child, so it's not everywhere. That's just the way my life was decorated and set up before I had a child was very different to now. But I have my areas in my house where I have my grandmother's chair, and I have pictures of those who passed over around me, and I can sit there, and there I know I have my choir of people who are no longer on this planet with me, but they're around me all the time. I can sit there and breathe and feel held. That's my corner for being held. So I have different areas around my house that reminds me of an energy that I can tune into that might not be obvious during the day, but they're there for me to go to, or if I look over there, I'm being reminded. So I believe that if we see microcosmos as our homes and how we try to create peace and understanding and nurture, because I believe anybody who is nurtured will not fight. So if we make sure that we take time to nurture ourselves, nurture one another, see that as a microcosmos, then we don't have to all of us be marching at the streets. That is our little activism, to nurture and center ourselves and create a base for our family. That's activism in itself.
So beautiful. So it's so interesting. This light is coming in, the sun is coming in through the window here. This is not, I haven't really had this happen before. I feel like there's a lot of energy going, and I do want to share with the listeners, my voice, just a second. We're talking energy. So there's energy. So I see it in art. I once had a piece of art when I walked in my house. I love abstract, but it was very chaotic. It had a lot of colors. It was very chaotic. And I'd walk in the house, and I had no idea at the time what was going on, but I just felt uneasy. And one day I thought, I think it's this piece of art. And I moved it, and I put another one that's more soothing. And so when I entered the house, there's a calm, there's an energetic calm. So it's in everything. I'm surrounded by feathers here. This is what I want to share with listeners. This is so cool. So, and the way energy comes into our lives, just start listening. So this morning when I was getting ready for this podcast, I put on a blue silk shirt. But while I was putting on, I said, I need to wear a white silk shirt today. It just kept coming into me. I went, nope, I'm going to wear the blue shirt. I went back upstairs. I thought, I need to wear white. Nope, I'm going to wear the blue. Well, then you messaged me and you said, you're going to wear a feather, my favorite, a feather jacket. Is that fine? I said, oh my gosh, wear what you feel great in. At that instant, I knew I had to go upstairs. So it was 5 minutes before we were recording. I changed my shirt. I feel so good energetically in what I'm wearing, in complimenting what you're wearing. And that might seem so trivial, but that's how energy works. It goes down to the tiniest little thing. If there's a food you love, and when you taste it in your mouth, your whole body lights up, that's energy working and soothing and comforting you. So I really hope that if nothing else, that people look at what energetically, that little spark of, joy, or a little pinprick of joy comes in. Notice, what is that? What are you getting that from? Because that nurtures you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think in both big scale and small scale, if we use our breathing to become aware of the environment, why do I feel like this coming in the door? What has shifted, or what is there? What is something that is different for me? The TV podcast show I have on the new reality TV, I have one episode which is on art and performance, of how we may buy art for entire businesses, and suddenly things start to go wrong. We have a new strategy, but people don't understand, when you change strategy and vision, then you have to look at the art that you have, because then the art is no longer, or sometimes it may be, but most times the art need to shift or be changed to another place, because it can be an entire business or entire museum, anywhere you'll see. If you change the vision, then of course something needs to change in your environment as well. And also in my book, I have this chapter on a new client I had many years ago. She called me up and said, I've got this new job, Christel, and I love it. It's head of development for this amazing company. When I'm working from home, I love it. But when I'm going to my office, it takes about 5 minutes and I'm drained. And then I go to her office, tune into the energy, and I say, of course, the person who sat here before you, I have a feeling that he was a CFO who was well up in his age and not following the new vision. So he was change resistant. And he sat here until he retired. So when you are now head of development, you are head of the new vision, the new strategy to ripple out into all the departments. Of course, this is what you feel. And then we worked with the energy and her perception and just the entire field management. We worked with that. And then she was able to work in there. And that was not even art, but that was an imprint from something before her. And I think it's so important that with everything, that we do not neglect the fact that what seems simple might be some of the most important things to become aware of. Because it takes so little to change so much. And for us, it even gave us a different way to connect, because you said, love the jacket. I have feathers all over on my desk to remind me of ease or magic or whatever it was, different feathers meant to you. So we were just connecting in magic just before going into this call, and we've never met before, spoken before. So that lifted us into a space that we both believe in, that the magic comes from within and what we perceive and the cues and everything around us, and it exists. It's real.
It's so real, and it's so wrapped into this podcast, the magic and the nurturing. And I felt your energy this morning when I woke up. I felt your beautiful energy before we got on this. So it's around us all the time. If we can just start really noticing that, it's going to change your daily life. Just to notice that nurturing energy that's with us, because we have guides, we have beings with us all the time, loved ones that are nurturing us, but we just oftentimes don't listen. We had, in the house I'm in, we had a flood about 5 years ago where the house got destroyed. So we had to move out, and it was a really challenging time. But what happened was the best thing that has ever happened for us. I never really liked the certain things in the home, like the cabinets, the countertops. Everything was changed. I really like whites and beiges and really neutral colors. Now when I walk in my home, it feels so great. So the things that come into our lives that we think are tragic, like what happened to you when you had an injury, changed the trajectory of your life, oftentimes are the greatest gifts that we could imagine, but at the time, it's devastating. And that is a true life example of something that shifted, where I walk in my house every day and I love being here. And I do think it's important that your home is a very nurturing space for you.
Yes.
Anyway, oh my gosh, we really went through this quickly. Christel, I have some questions I ask everybody. Can I ask you some questions?
Yeah.
When fear starts creeping in for you, what is your go-to thing to do to kind of lift you out of it? And it might be the breathing.
It may be the breathing. It may be sitting in the chair with my people that are no longer here in this physical world to be taken care of. But it's also always, when fear creeps in, even it could be being in my car, being at home, anywhere, fear or anxiety, the first question I asked is, was I okay just before it creeped in? Because then assessing what happened, and I assess, what have I eaten? Have I forgotten to eat? Who did I just speak to? What did I let in? What did I just see? Sometimes in traffic, you could be at a red light, and then when you start driving, you can feel anxiety, but maybe the car in front of you was stressing out about the red light because they had an urgency. So when you then drive through that energy, you start having anxiety. And then as intuitives or sensitives, people don't know or register without having been taught they don't register how the energy then blend with their energies and how to let go of it again. So it's all about the detailed observation that becomes consciousness, because awareness is in the details to begin with. And then when you train it and see proof again and again and again, because the second you become aware of it's not your own energy, it often evaporates. But it could also be, because my triggers, if I have a negative thought, I go through, didn't I sleep right? What did I eat? What would I like to eat? What did I forget something I needed to remember today? Because to me, negativity is darkness, and yin and yang, they're all there to help the darkness and the light. So for me, when there's a darkness that pushes me, I know that there's a light I have not put into my own energy field. Or I haven't assured my energy field is strong so that it doesn't blend with what comes in from the outside world. So it's, to me, that is just one advice, is to become very detail oriented with your awareness of what happens in the second fear creeps in, because it's almost always help. And sometimes it's there to help, to grab your child before she runs out to the street, or call your mother because you had a fearful thought. But be very observing of when it comes to you. How did you feel before it entered? And just do a registry. Have you made healthy choices? Because if you have made healthy choices and you have nurtured yourself, then it's usually something coming from the outside world, either to remind you of something, warn you of something, or just energies that you blended with that was not yours.
Exactly. Yep. I get that one. What's one of the best pieces of advice you received personally or professionally?
Not being afraid of other people's anger. That came to me in a time where I've never been good with conflict, and I've been so privileged most of my life to not attract it into my life. And when I then did, in form of a relationship, I kept applying the same old me into the relationship, and getting out of the relationship, I called the police for advice in a certain way of making boundaries. And the police officer said to me, "Stop being afraid of other people's anger, and you shall see things will change for you." And I know this is not professionally or from a friend, but he came like an angel, because I was not in a situation where I was physically abused or other things, but it was a very critical situation. But in the second I stopped fearing the anger from the other party, I could stand in my power again. And that has helped me in business. It has helped me in everyday life. It has helped me even not being afraid of my own anger too, because I applied it to a deeper level. And what did he just told me? Because it took my breath away, so I knew this was essential. So stop being afraid of other people's anger.
That's incredible advice. I had a conversation with a girlfriend last night that continued this morning about how I am not good with conflict. I don't like conflict. I would like to turn around in the other direction. I'm not good with anger. So this is really synchronistic that you're bringing this up. And I was talking about it last night and this morning. And here's a police officer, somebody you would not expect to get that kind of information from. So there's another earth angel. Yes. And I love the unexpected ones that come along. Yes. That's really, really a fantastic story. What does a successful life look like to you?
I think I would go back to your word, peace. Success to me, I have big visions. I have a lot of things that I would like to assist the world to become empowered with, and empower individuals and organizations and nations to create a better world. So I have high standards for what I'm leaving behind when I'm no longer here. But to me, success to me is if I am healthy, if I have chosen good relationships around me. Of course, that my daughter I can't assure her happiness, but if she's strong enough to go through things, whether it's happiness or not, but strong enough to go through life as a happy human being. And have I felt joy every day in what I do and the people that is around me? So then I think it's successful. Have I contributed to something in the world to become better in my community? And have I felt joy? And does my family, are they joyful, and are they strong enough to be resistant to everything that comes along? Resilience.
Yeah. There's a lot. A lot of arrows being thrown at us. This is the last, it's a sentence. In the past I was, and now I am.
In the past, I thought I had to carry the world on my shoulders. Now I am passionate about not only being resilient myself, but assisting people with creating strong structures that create health and conscious success, not only now, but for future generations too.
So beautiful. We're very lucky to have you in this world. We need you now more than ever. We need more people just like you spreading the love and teaching people the importance of energetics around them. It's just, if you have a choice to think of something negative or something positive, it seems obvious that you'd go the positive route, but we often don't because we're wired. We have ancient wiring. So, Christel, where can people find you?
They can reach me on my website, ChristelRosenkildeChristensen.com. There's a contact page. So everybody's welcome to reach out. I'll try and answer as quick as possible, but be patient with me. And then I have my social media where I try as much as possible to inspire and uplift and empower. So everywhere you write Christel Rosenkilde Christensen in Instagram, on LinkedIn, YouTube, on the television channel, the new reality TV in the US. It's US based. But you're always welcome to reach out, and I'll find a way to assist you, whether it's an individual or a company or a world.
Beautiful. And we put all of that in the show notes. So if people don't know how to spell your name,
fantastic.
We put all that in the show notes. Christel, it's been just an honor to be in your energetic space. It just feels so good to me. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And I look forward to more conversations with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. And it's such an honor to have met you here online. It just proves that the world is a small place after all, and energy doesn't know distance.
Oh, isn't that true? Sending you so much love. Mwah.
Likewise. Thank you so much, and happy Easter.
Oh, thank you so much.